All eyes on Facebook. U.S. lawmakers are grilling Facebook executive David Marcus on the company's cryptocurrency project Libra. During the hearing, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown stated Facebook has a, quote, long track record of consumer abuse.
Facebook has a long track record of abusing users' trust. You know that, Mr. Marcus. Until recently, you headed Facebook's messaging team as you were allowing other companies like Netflix and Spotify and the Royal Bank of Canada access and read Facebook users' private messages. So be clear about what went on at Facebook. Facebook told us they were keeping our data safe when they were really allowing other companies to sift through private messages. You had to shut down those programs after huge backlash.
Brian Leach joins us now. He's the CEO at Ibotta. And what are you paying attention to in these hearings? We hear a lot of questions that focus on the fact that the members of Congress asking these questions, the senators, don't really know perhaps what they're talking about.
Well, that's happened before, I'm afraid. It's difficult for the regulators to keep up with the pace of change in technology. What I'm looking to see is the spirit one of let's find a way forward? This is an inevitable advance in technology, and we need to find a way to regulate it to take into account public policy concerns? Or is this a chance to use Facebook as a political piñata and try to bury our head in the sand with regard to blockchain currencies?
But is it a blockchain currency? I mean, we had a guest on last hour who said it's not blockchain based and it's not actually really even a cryptocurrency. So is this indeed inevitable, or is this Facebook trying to manipulate the system?
It's too early to tell. David Marcus wrote a white paper that is pretty high level. I think what I'll say is that it imagines a future in which transaction costs can come dramatically down from what we see today. It imagines a future where instead of relying on the traditional payment networks and banks to clear and settle transactions, you could do that in a split second for the benefit of the unbanked, and even for just everybody else who's looking to merchants, for example, who are looking to have a little bit more efficiency in the way that people transact. If you look in China, for example, they've already managed to develop solutions that don't rely on credit card networks and banks. I think that is coming, whether it is in the form of Libra or the next stable coin currency down the way. And I think what that challenge that presents is for governments to think about how does this work in terms of monetary policy? How do we think about potential misuses of currencies like this? And so I think it's unfortunate in some ways that Facebook's own reputational damage is the baggage that we're seeing with the remarks just now, for instance, instead of having maybe a cleaner slate on which to have this debate.
Brian, this is Sinan Oral from MIT. Is there a universe in which this currency gets off the ground without regulation? And if not, what are the key regulatory questions that we should be thinking about?
I think there is a universe in which a proto version of this gets off the ground. I think what Facebook is doing is essentially sidling up to the major financial institutions, the thought leaders in cryptocurrency and blockchain currencies. Whether or not this is one, we can have that semantic debate. They are sidling up to PayPal and so forth, and I think they can work within the confines of the fiat system to a certain degree. However, to really achieve the full potential of what I'm talking about and what I'm excited about, I do think you need a completely new regulatory regime. And I think one of the questions that will have to be answered, for example, is what are the mechanisms in place to think about stabilizing a currency in the absence of traditional monetary policy? One of the reasons why Bitcoin hasn't been useful is that you don't want to pay for a lawnmower and find out later on that you just spent $1 million on it. You need a stable form of currency. And I think there are 6 or 10 companies working on this, all thinking about that from a technology standpoint. But there are social policy ramifications if you don't have a certain, even if you don't peg it all the way to a current currency, if you don't have some kind of reserve.
Brian, if there is a proto-currency that is released without regulation and it's an instant download, Calibra is an instant download to 2.4 billion people, and something goes wrong, how do you put that genie back in the bottle?
I think it's very difficult. You can imagine people actually being paid in this currency. People, you can imagine failure of the grid, for example. One of the things I think there's not getting enough attention is how much dependency blockchain currencies and cryptocurrencies have on the electrical grid of the world. If that goes down within 48 hours, you're talking about chaos. We don't have a way to, go back to dollars at that point. We're living in a state of nature. So I think that would be a very serious concern I would have as far as the environmental sustainability of the mining required, but then also just the security of the underlying electricity system necessary to power this scale of ambition. And I'm not sure Facebook has really thought all the way that far down the chain.
Brian Leach is the CEO at Ibotta. Thank you.